pretty fast. If you don't stop to look around once in a while, you can miss it.
Hey, we're the first, the last, the Nerdom. This is Tom, and I'm here with Mike, and looks like we're having some technical difficulties.
Too many buttons. Too many buttons. There's too many buttons.
And we're here with my good friend Chris Miles.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yep, it's been a minute.
I know, been a while, been a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. But I love your podcast. It's beautiful. And by word of mouth, I spread it around as much as I can. So you guys get more subscribers. We got to get these guys subscription. We had the subscribers up. I know you guys at like 3 something now. We need to go to like 500, but more than that. So that's our goal.
Awesome. Yeah, it's like Tom was saying. It's nice to meet you, Chris. It's the first time we're talking, and this is kind of unusual for us because we are going into our second week in a row of having a special guest, and this one, what we're about to get into, is kind of near and dear, I think, special to all of us in our own ways. As we're kind of covering, we are a couple of us here on the panel here are 80s babies.
Yes, sir.
Guilty.
Yes, sir.
You too, Chris.
Guilty as well. As well.
Yeah, but before we get into the main show here, I just want to pull up our bona fides. If I could have it cooperate with me here, we'll do it like that. That way it's bigger. Okay, yeah, this is the like what Tom was saying, playing us in, so to speak. Chris too, thank you for that beautiful intro. I believe that was from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Yeah, I'm Mike and Tom. And we are the first last Nerdom, and I just want to cover this real quick so we can jump into our main event here and talk to Chris and see what that's about. But we're on YouTube as always. If you like what you see, comment, subscribe. If you have ideas for us to cover, we cover pretty much anything that has a cult or nerd following, anything and everything from books to media to movies, physical media, as Tom likes to get into. And we're also on Twitter. Tom runs our Twitter there. If you wish to maybe don a hazmat suit and get on the Twitter and and brave that. But we're also there. So we have many places to listen to feedback and commentary. And with that, I think I'll pull back here, and then Tom, I'll let you take it away and kind of give a little.
Yep. Chris, I appreciate the love for our channel, and this is all about love this time. We're loving that. We're loving the 80s, and Chris is giving a little bit of his time here to kind of talk about his love of collecting VHS tapes, and he also has a webpage that he's started his own online business, and we wanted to share that with our audience because
pull that up real quick. So while we're talking about it here.
Yeah, we every time we cover an 80s movie, we always get an uptick in views. So we know that our audience loves the 80s. So we thought this would be right down their aisle. And Chris, if you want to take it over and kind of describe your website here.
Yep, the name of the clothing store is called 80 Miles Clothing Gear, and it's through Printify. And basically, we just have a lot of things like T-shirts, socks, accessories like mugs and notebooks and towels with the company logo on there. And then I got some stuff with the 80s logo on there, like the clock, for instance, has that 80s logo on it. It says 80s made me. So I think that kind of explains the type of people that we are. The 80s made us. That's just true. It was a whole different time, whole different way of life. So that's different from what it is today. So sometimes you got to kind of go back and relive that so you can deal with the world that we live in today. So I love the 80s.
Yeah, more of an innocent time. It was a little bit more flashier, but a little bit more laid back. And then I changed my lights to the kind of the 80s pink flare. I thought I would represent some. And Chris, you have one of your shirts on, don't you? You could I'm
gonna stand up real quick if you can see it.
Yeah, please do. Yeah,
80s and maybe that's one of the T-shirts that we sell on the website, and we have like hoodies and things like that with that same logo on there. So if you like it, go explore it and see if you like something. And by all means, buy something if you love it.
Yep, and we'll have the link in our description, and
Absolutely.
we'll hit this again at the end of our show just to remind you, because we
Absolutely.
know you're going to stay for the whole show and you might
There
forget,
you
so
go.
we're gonna remind you. But yeah, we're gonna be and one of the things that I know quite definite about you, Chris, is you like
Mhm.
to collect VHSs.
Oh yeah.
I'm a big proponent of physical media.
Hmm.
I'm more in the future. I'm more of the Blu-ray 4K guy, but
Uh-huh.
but yeah, it's always nice to have a big chunky VHS tape in your
Yeah.
hand.
Yeah.
I think you how big has your collection grown?
Oh my goodness. I think I got over 2,000 right now.
Oh,
Oh
wow.
wow,
Over 2,000. Yeah.
that's
So,
not that is a serious that's a serious commitment. so,
well,
so
when you collect things and you see more things from the 80s that you didn't have, it's almost like a treasure hunt. You're looking
Hmm.
for certain things, and when you find them, it's a beautiful thing. Yes, yes. So I love
absolutely.
collecting VHS tapes. I got a lot of 80s teeny bopper movies like Pretty in Pink and 16 Candles. And I'm a big John Hughes fan. So
Now,
um,
where do you go? Do you is it mostly online, or do you go to swap meets, or how do you
yeah,
collect your VHSs?
it's a little bit of everything. You can go to swap meets. You can go to a place like Goodwill. Oh my goodness,
Oh
Goodwill.
yeah.
Oh
You'd
Hmm.
be
yeah, yeah.
surprised what you find at the Goodwill.
Yep.
And back when I started, they were only like 50 cents. They're kind of like a little bit more right now
Oh
as
wow.
far as
It,
the price. But I was paying 50 cents when I was finding all these movies. So it's
yeah.
been years since I started collecting VHS tapes. It's a little bit different now because a lot of people have caught on to it. And so
Yeah.
a lot more people are collecting. So they kind of raise
Yes.
the prices on it.
Everything's becoming a collector's market.
Mhm.
Everybody's starting to see the value in everything
Oh, yeah,
physical.
for sure.
I think as we move to digital, I think
Mhm.
us and even the younger people they see the value of having something physical, and
Yeah.
I think that's going to pick up the like say the everybody was into streaming. I think everybody's
Mhm.
kind of starting to move towards
Oh,
physical
yeah.
media, and
Hmm.
I think we have one of the articles we have is on the price of some of those rare VHSs,
Oh, yeah.
and I
Mhm.
think you brought us some movies that you
Yeah.
particularly like on VHS.
Yeah, I got a couple here. I got like maybe four. Now this movie right here, everybody knows this movie right here. This is
Oh,
Purple
Purple
Rain.
Rain. Yep.
But
Oh yeah.
if you look at the side of it, it's got the original Warner Brothers logo on there.
Logo. Yeah, yeah.
Oh
Yeah, so
yeah.
this is an
Yep.
original release from 1980, 1984. Yeah, and of course, Prince's Purple Rain is about musicians struggling within himself, within his family, and he wants to make
Hmm.
it big, but um, he's having issues with his family, his girlfriend, and all that good stuff, and he overcomes that, and he finally makes it out of, I guess, his hometown. So,
You,
but this is one of the best movies, one of my favorite movies. Here's the tape, and I like to collect things because you see it's got the little tag on there, price
wow.
tag
Hmm.
on it. If you can see that,
Yep.
uh, to me, that's real authentic, like this. So I'd like to collect things like that, and that's just one of the movies I got, Purple Rain, and then I got something. I don't know if you guys have heard of this one, Savage Streets with
Oh
Blair.
yeah, Blair,
Yeah,
Linda
yeah,
Blair.
Linda
Yeah.
Blair. A lot of people don't know
Awesome.
about this one, but this is a great
Yep.
movie. This is a great movie. Um, in this movie, I think Linda Blair is part of like a pretty girl crew, and they're out late night one night, and they run across this gang, and they rip them off of their car, and they junk their car and just leave it there. And so this gang comes looking for them and finds them, and Linda Blair's sister ends up getting killed in this movie.
Mm.
She's deaf, she can't hear, and
Hmm.
they end up killing her. So she gets her revenge on all the gang members. So this is a quintessential 80s movie right here. I'll
Hmm.
show the back of it. Looks like that. And the tape, the tape is like that. That's the tape.
Hmm.
That's
So,
That,
crazy.
oh my
that's
God,
some.
I just love it.
Yeah, I love all the different styles of VHSs.
Mhm.
Yeah, sometimes they would make them certain colors and stuff too
Right.
to kind of.
Man,
Mhm.
I don't know if you have fond memories or even memories of this and just in general, maybe not fond or not, but I remember, of course, this would be more back in the early 90s, I maybe late 80s for me, but I do remember like going to the grocery store, like when they would have movie rentals or,
Oh yeah.
place.
Oh, yeah.
Nowadays they don't. That is from days gone by. And I'll probably be saying that a lot, but where you could just go and I can remember, I can still almost see in my mind's eye, kind of walking through the Best Buy or the whatever aisle after aisle and like trying to find something that if I'm with my mom, she'll say, I know that I can't get these titles, but if I'm with my dad, I can,
Absolutely. Yes.
slide one in and like, yeah, okay, sure. Or my uncle for that matter, or my cousins, the
Oh, yeah.
thrill of actually like going and picking out a physical tape that you have to
Yeah.
go and then you actually put in and watch is just something that is missing.
It's
and
missing.
like
Right.
like Tom says, like with the 4K, I am nowhere near you or Thomas as far as it goes for collecting physical media, but Thomas has infected me
Yeah.
with the understanding that and we'll get into it here in a little bit, but the thing is with streaming is great, don't get me wrong, like we live in a wonderful era of technology and choices, but the thing is, if so and so gets in a dispute with so and so, they'll pull those titles. I've seen that at least 3 times. Like when I go out to eat, I don't have cable at home, but I can remember me and my kiddos going out to eat, and like we're talking like in the last 6 months or so, maybe 9 months, like where there is a dispute between Charter and whoever it is. Like I've seen that happen a few times, and like the thing is with VHS tapes or cassettes or even 8 tracks or vinyl or Blu-ray or whatever it is, that's something that you physically own that they can't just pull the plug on.
Right.
Or you don't have internet, or you got to download the latest update. Nope.
That's
Like
right.
Well,
that's
and also, it doesn't even have to be like a copyright dispute. The movie Hush, which was made for Netflix, is no longer on Netflix.
Right.
Netflix pulled it for whatever reason. It's a Mike Flanagan movie, a great little horror movie. It's nowhere to be seen, and there's no physical media of it. So yeah, it's that's when you could kind of put forth, the pirate sites that download this stuff. They're the archivist,
Right.
they keep everything in flux. But yeah, I'm a little bit older. I'm more of a '70s baby, but
Right.
yeah, I remember when there was no VHSs, and you watched what was on TV, and if, if it wasn't there, then So when VHS came along, really kind of revolutionized. Like, oh man, I could tape it and it still be with me. I
Oh,
got really into like taping stuff off of TV, so I could keep that. And
Yeah.
I got really good at cutting out commercials as I taped it. It's kind of a lost art now. Obviously, no
It
one
is.
is able to do that. But yeah, to this day where everything's streaming and you could pull something up immediately to watch it. But like Mike says, there's always limitations to everything, and it's always good to go back to where it all started with the '80s and the VHS.
Yeah, it was just a simpler time. That's all.
Yep.
Simpler times. You want to watch a movie. The going out to the mom and pop store, VHS
Yeah.
stores, and just finding stuff. Just looking at the artwork was a big deal for
Yeah.
me. So
Yeah, that was that. There is a little bit of that with streaming. You could, sometimes I get lost in going through the thumbnails of various movies, and sometimes that's all I end up doing is just going through.
Right.
Is oh yeah, I don't really have time to watch a movie now. But yeah, that whole getting dressed and getting in the car and going to your local mom and pop videotape store, or the big Blockbuster, or even going to the grocery store and seeing a movie. Yeah. Mom could go grocery shopping. You could just wander over to the VHSs and kind of look at them. And a lot of movies, I would look at those covers, and maybe there were more of the scandalous horror movie covers that I knew Mom wouldn't let me rent.
Right.
But yeah, I'd have all these wonderful ideas of what would happen in those movies. Then years later, when I watched it, it was a little bit more cheaper than what the cover indicated. But we've got our 100 Rolling Stones put together their version of the top 100 movies of the 80s. I was kind of looking at this pre us recording. They put a lot of foreign movies in there. I didn't recognize some of those, but they had some classics. I saw that Purple Rain's in there.
Oh, for sure. That's got to be in there.
Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Right there. That's just a classic movie. You can't. To me personally, I think that's the best like music biography that was ever done.
High praise. High praise.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have quite a few examples here to go through. But it is something to be said for thinking about what you want to watch without having basically mankind's knowledge in every trailer for everything you could ever imagine.
Right.
You know, and kind of like going off of your own kind of personal, local, so to speak, you know, database, that sort of thing. For it, it takes another thing of like what influences you, you know, to pick out a movie, to how we've changed our consuming habits from the 80s till now. And I just want to kind of go back to cover that point. I do remember, and all the way up through the 90s, like definitely in the 80s too. I used to have a videotape, you know, to, you know, your blank 8-hour one or whatever, like that. I can't think of the speed.
Yeah.
But you'd always have that one that would have, you know, your favorite show or your favorite commercial or trailer or whatever you could and this is in real time, so whatever you saw, if you didn't hit that record button unless you knew it was coming on, it really was that and then cassette tapes as well, like kind of as an analog to, you know, just listening to the top 40 or the top 10 and then like listening and hitting the record button at the right time to or going and getting singles for that matter for music, since we're talking about Prince reminded me of it. That was different too, and singles versus albums. Kids don't know what albums nowadays are. They really don't. They don't know the joy of listening it from end to end and like getting that. Does this suck or is this like amazing? And like you're constantly listening to it over and over again.
Right. Yeah. It kind of forced you like, and then we can't talk about the 80s without talking about MTV. MTV was huge. And just like, you know, the people of the 70s and 80s, listening to the radio, they got their cassette tapes ready to tape their favorite song off of the off the radio, and you'd curse the DJ if he started talking on into the song until the vocals started. You wanted that fresh copy of that song. Whereas on MTV, you would wait, you know, all day to record that music video that you wanted. And I remember doing that. But yeah, it's and then also like you know, there's certain TV shows like I would say, well, okay, well, is this something I'd maybe want to watch in the future? And yeah, I was a huge fan of the TV series Twin Peaks. I kind of anticipated that I would love that, so I recorded it off of the original airings of those, so that I had a copy of those, and that's how I watched it for a long time until they came out with videotapes, official videotapes of those episodes. So yeah. Oh, and yeah, Mike pulled up the 15 most expensive tapes. You may have one of these, Chris.
I got the Goonies. I don't know if it's the first pressing, but I got a clamshell of that and a regular VHS tape of that one. But I don't know if they're worth anything.
Yeah. Now, don't let this fool you. On these are factory sealed. Do you have any factory sealed ones?
Yeah. No, I don't have any factory sealed ones. I got some screener ones, like some promo ones. I found this article on Marketplace on Facebook, and this woman that lives out by me, she had a whole bunch of VHS tapes that were actually from the studio, and they were promos. They got the promo stamps on them. Some of them are sealed up as well. So
that's crazy.
I bought a bunch of those, dude. I got like I spent like $100 on those tapes, and so I got a bunch of promos that has a different I guess layout, or it's just a different version of what the theatrical movie was. So I got a bunch of those, dude.
So how do you, I guess with 2000, plus VHS tapes, how do you keep track of them? How do you just kind of have your own internal database that you know what you have, what you don't have, or do you work from like a list of things that you want to get eventually,
Mhm.
or have you already kind of circled, screen wrapped and kind of done that a few times and now you're just collecting for whatever feels right, or I guess like what does that look like? What does that feel like?
You know what? I built 2 racks, and they're 10 rows in each rack. So
Okay.
that's
Wow.
they go 40 across. So that's 400 per rack. So
Oh
that's about
wow.
800. I got them all in alphabetical order.
Oh,
So
okay.
I
Easy
pretty much
peasy.
mentally I know where everything is at.
Right,
So
right, right,
get Ferris
right.
Bueller's Day Off, I can find it like that. No problem.
Smart,
Mhm.
smart, smart. Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome, awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
go
and
ahead.
I saw that on the most expensive one, they're all in the CGC packaging. We're us
Mhm.
being comic book nerds, we're familiar with CGC.
Mhm.
They do the grading of comic
Grading,
books
right.
and also of baseball cards. They've just recently got into being in the last few years grading VHS tapes. You
Interesting.
could package them up, send them to CGC. They'll give it a grade and
Mhm.
box it into that plastic shell,
Mhm.
just like a comic book or a trading card. And so it costs you a pretty penny to get it graded, but that's in anticipation of once it's been graded, you could charge more for it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, have you ever thought of maybe doing that with your holy grail of videotapes, or have you gotten
Yeah.
that far?
I haven't gotten that far, T Mac, but I've
Mhm,
thought about it. Like Mike, what you got on the screen right now? That Nightmare on Elm Street tape.
mhm.
If you look at the brand at the bottom, it says Media.
Okay.
That's gold mine. If you find any VHS tape with that name on it, that's one of the video companies that distributed the tapes back in the '80s. Media is huge, man. That's big time. If you can find that, it could be worth some money, especially if it's sealed,
No kidding. No kidding.
because that's like an original. That's like original pressing right there.
That's cool. That's
Mhm.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tom, did you want me to go to another link as we kind of go through this? Like, now, do you have any? Do any of either one of you ever have fond memories of, like, it's Friday night, you're younger kid, in a,
Mhm.
you're hoping maybe we can go rent a movie or anything like that. Any fond memories like that?
Oh yeah, that was life. That was just your life back then for teenagers.
Mhm,
Because remember, we didn't have social media,
No.
so
mhm,
we had to. Everything was direct.
mhm,
If you had to get do a book report, you had to go to the library.
mhm.
You need to find a book, you had to go through the card catalog to find that book in the
That's
library.
true.
So everything was direct. So as far as music and VHS tapes, man, you look forward to that after
Mhm.
the whole week of school, and it's Friday. You don't have any school on the weekend, of course, and you're looking for that movie that your parents say you can't watch, like T Mac
Yeah.
said. So you go to the VHS store and you try to find it,
And
man.
you were,
That was a beautiful.
yeah, you were locked in once you got that movie.
Mhm. Right.
If it turned out to be
Mhm.
crap, you had to watch it.
Right.
You had to sit through it, and yeah, especially if it was a family pick, the whole family
Right.
Yep.
had to sit through it.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Absolutely.
and it's a lot of word of mouth. Like your friends would say, "Oh, you got to
Hmm.
see this movie," or
Right.
I would I would like to get, like, I was into horror and sci-fi, so I would get the latest issue of Fangoria or Starlog if you're a
Hmm.
sci-fi guy. And you'd read about that little known movie and then say, "Oh, well, I got to track that down." And your resource was the video store. Is like, okay, does my video store have this movie? And yeah, there was endless. Yeah, a lot of the searches were like Chris was saying, tracking down those
Hmm.
VHSs. A lot of those hunts during the 80s, 90s, 2000s was going out to the
Hmm.
stores, going out to the
Yeah.
swap meets, going to the used store, and when you'd find that gem, it would be like a very euphoric. It's like, oh my gosh, I found what
Hmm.
I've been looking for. Whereas
Right.
now you kind of lose that a little bit if you're just clicking around on the internet, and
Right.
find it there. There's still a joy of finding that rare thing that you always wanted, and maybe getting a
Hmm.
great deal off of it online, but and then
That's
waiting
right.
for it to come in the mail. But but yeah, there's that certain, I don't know, I guess the release of endorphins of actually physically finding it and getting it in your hands. It's like, oh my gosh, this is it. But yeah, Mike is pulling up some still video rental stores that are still open. There's a list I found. We'll put it in the link dump of all the known open video rental stores in America, broken down by state. And
I need that. I definitely need that list. I need that list.
All right. Yep. We'll get it to you. And yeah, there's a few in Illinois and Missouri, and I'm in Arkansas. There was actually a couple in Arkansas.
Gerardo, yeah, Holden, yeah. I'm trying to see if any of like vintage stock. Yep. There, yeah. That's just that's a place round. No, I was just gonna say too. It's funny. So obviously, it would be great to have the physical media for you, but the vast majority of people, it's probably harder to. And I know there's been a resurgence of making, just in physical media in general, a resurgence of film, like creating film and kind of that very limiting scarcity nature of being in reality and having physical constraints on what you can or can't do, or having a limited number of whatever shots, so to speak, if it's film, like real film, actual real film, like camera film, or a vinyl, that sort of thing. There's only so many playthroughs for vinyl. And VHS, I believe, is no different. And same for cassette and all the other things. Blu-ray as well. But it's funny too. We were talking about this, having you on, and then we kind of put our heads together, and I was like, well, I saw a couple articles about how, as funny as it is, we're streaming. Oh, that's not it. But basically, like what, as for as much as this is a New York Times article, that's the thing. But and I've seen, and actually when I researched this a little bit, it seems like every couple 2-3 years, there's always a forever in like the top 10, top 20 of streaming shows for a year, any given year. We constantly like to look back and watch Cheers, Friends, Seinfeld. We like to rewatch these things that are already out or done. And that has been true. I remember, of course, growing up as a kiddo, we didn't have cable all the time, but I do remember Nickelodeon when in the daytime it was for kids. And then at night it was Nick at Night. And that got I got exposed to like I Love Lucy, Bewitched, all these kind of really cool shows that are gone. That you'd be hard pressed. I mean, I'm sure you can find them, but that's why we like to use a website called Just Watch, where you can, like, if you're looking for a specific title or TV show, and it could be a pain to not know where that's streaming at. I also found another website, but anyway, the point that I wanted to make was, it's just funny how like they have all these new things, the latest superhero cape flick or show, whatever you want to call it. I'm trying to be generic here, or the latest, whatever, Starship, whatever. I'm kind of glossing over a lot of competing things, but how we look back, what do we end up turning on? Law and Order CSU or whatever, or The Office, or something like that. It's just funny how that works.
We all want our comfort food, right? so yeah, I have a friend that when he's feeling down or just wants to relax, he pulls up Seinfeld. He wants to watch a couple episodes of Seinfeld, and we all have those comfort things that we just like to watch, and I think VHS is sort of like that. It's like Chris says, going back to a simpler time. Going back to the 80s. Oh, and I just remembered I have a VHS. I kind of got rid of all my old ones. I was telling Chris, I wish I could have gave him all my old ones when I was moving from St. Louis. When I moved back from St. Louis to Arkansas, and couldn't. Some stuff got lost along the way, and I was like, I don't really need these videotapes anymore, and I wish I had kept them, but yeah, I kind of kind of dropped them off, but I do have a recent one that
Okay.
came out. So I'll be right back while y'all kind of vamp.
Yeah, we got to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What's your? I guess what's the draw to you, Chris, for choosing VHS versus DVD or vinyl or whatever? Like, what does it for you? Like, what's the trigger that gets you into it?
You know what? I think it takes you back to your memories of when you were a kid. You know, the 80s and the 90s were probably the last 2 decades where you could actually be a teenager, you know.
Yeah.
And these movies, all these movies that we have on VHS tape, these movies are connected to that time.
That's true.
You know, like you remember where you were when you saw maybe Creepshow 2, or when you saw I like my
Total
first
Recall.
movie ever. My first movie ever was 1978 was Grease. My aunt took me to see it. I was like 10 years old, and back then they had the big movie theaters with the big marquees and the lights and all that.
Yeah.
Back in the 70s and the 80s, and that was a whole nother experience. You know, it's not like sitting at home watching the movie, streaming the movie now. You had to go to these theaters, and you had the big theaters with the paintings on the ceilings and the velvet seats and all that stuff.
Yep.
You don't forget things like
No,
that, man. And that's
and
a whole nother experience.
yeah, and that's one thing too. I there's a distinct feeling of going to, like, say, if you live in a smaller town or you're visiting your grandparents or whatever, and maybe they're a little bit more rural than like in a big city, whatever it is. Like, but you go into, you know, like maybe you go to the next town over, and they have that classic theater like on Main Street usually, and then you have the whole, like you were saying, the marquee or the thing, but those are just like VHS or renting any kind of media in a grocery store, you know, like comic books too. That's another thing too. It was very accessible when we grew up. And kids nowadays, like, well, people just in general, not just kids, there's just such a competing, it's a, to pardon my language, but it could be a hellscape out there for deciding what you want to watch or what you're into. Maybe it's video gaming, maybe it's a movie, maybe it's a new album or something like that. But chances are it's probably going to be on digital. And while I like that, like I was saying, Tom has rubbed off on me over the last couple of years of doing the show of like, hey, you know, nothing can be. Sure, I can go out and download whatever, you know, and you use your imagination wherever you want to download whatever from. We make no judgments. But aside from that, there's something to be said for like, like Tom was saying, like, well, hold on, I got it. Let me go get it. And then, you know, you don't need to download that. You don't need to wait 8 hours to download that, or like, oh crap, the internet got cut like last week with I think AT&T had a cellular outage or something like that, or disruption, whatever, internet backhaul, whatever the heck it was. You know, who cares? Okay, cool. I don't care. I'll put my disc in or the tape in and hit play, and then you're off to the races.
That's it.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah.
What you got, T-Mac? Let me see what you got.
All right. Yeah, this is
let me pull you up here to be big. Oh,
that's
there you go. That's much better. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So yeah, this came out in 2021. It's the video. They're on YouTube like us. Mega 64. They've been around. I guess they're more or less the 90s kids, but yeah, they come out with their own. They started off. They're on YouTube now, but they started off on TV. I know you guys remember this UHF on the channel, which it was a channel where it's open to the public. The local television station, they would let certain people on and put on a show. And Mega 64 got started there. They put together a show and put it out on UHF, and then eventually they transferred over to YouTube and been there. This has the early stuff that wasn't on YouTube, and they thought it would be kind of cool to put it out on videotape. And I got one of the copies. I think they've since sold out, but yeah, it's a very classic videotape. Nice. But yeah, the cool thing was it came with a little USB drive that had it on there too, because they knew their fans probably didn't have a videotape machine. But yeah, One of my brother-in-laws actually used to repair video machines, videotape machines, and I was thinking he could actually go back into business on that with all the people that are getting back into it and need videotape machines.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do have one quick question, or maybe not so quick. Chris, when you go, like when you are set in the mood and you got the vibe, as the kids say, to go watch your favorite whatever for the 100th time or whatever. What do you walk us through your setup? Like, what do you connected to an old CRT, old classic tube TV, or I guess what is that? How do you do that?
Actually,
Or what is your
you know what,
preference there
Mike?
for that?
My preference, I actually got a upstairs. I got a loft that I turned into a movie theater.
No way.
So I got a whole setup, and then I got a 120-inch screen up
Oh
there,
wow.
and I got the projector coming from the ceiling, and I got VCR hooked up to it. I got a PS5 hooked up to it. I got an old Atari game that I found at a garage sale that's hooked up to it. It's a console.
Right.
And so I play a lot of my retro stuff. That's like my media room. Music, whatever's media, it's upstairs.
That is how to do it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So that's my little man cave.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Very cool. Very cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was just,
But yeah, that's.
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, I just pull up a few articles that kind of just goes over, the streaming thing, this and that, and I don't think the streaming wars are over. I think that it's very interesting, and while I will never poo-poo more choices, I will Tom and I and a good friend of the show, we all kind of commiserated about the coming ads that came for Amazon Prime, which basically said that after this date, unless you kicked over a few extra bucks each month, you were going to be subjected to ads for what had been previously ad free, and that was just a bridge too far for me. And it's so funny how it's not a big price increase. Overall, it's a very small one, but never underestimate once you start making the consumer feel less than a consumer and more like a number, or a ticket to just get punched and then thrown away, to be honest, even more, to be more brutal about it. You kind of roll up the sleeves and go, I don't really like that feeling. What can I do about it? Well, I'm probably not going to go. Probably not going to stick around for you guys more. And I know in 2023, I had grabbed a maybe two, one for sure, physical Blu-ray editions. Like one was New York Ninja, I think, is coming to mind, and I think the other one was Film Threat, Chris Gore's thing, but which we should go back around and revisit that one day. That'd be a future show sometime this year, to catch up to it. But it's just more frustrating, especially and streaming has been around, like your video on demand has been out for a decade, if not a little bit longer. But I can remember, I put a lot of trust, like, okay, where am I going to put my physical, or my digital media library? Who do I want to put the ship into anchor in the bay of Apple? And I thought, well, it's Apple, and surely if I buy, for $20 or whatever it is, 15 or 12, if you find it on sale, a movie that you really love, one that you probably bought 3 or 4 times already up to this point, like it'll stick around. And I remember, like, probably 5 years after I bought, it was one of the Man with one of the my favorite trilogy probably of all time is the Man with No Name series by Sergio Leone. And anyway, I bought all those on Apple, and one day I logged in and I got a hankering to go watch it again, and go and try to find it. Can't find it. They disappeared it, and I called them up, and I'm very not happy. They did restore it, but the other one, there's another movie I can't recall. I think it might have been Gladiator or something like that, but they ended up, they're like, well, I'm sorry, we can't renew that because we didn't renew the licensing deal in the back. Like all these things that you should never as a consumer even care about, all of a sudden are pushed into the mainstream of, like, oh, well, I want to go watch, like Fort Lassie or the Andy Griffith Show or I Love whatever. Like, this is the TV show, like, or the website that I found, like where you can kind of go find classic that all over the map, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000. So go
Yeah,
find
yeah,
it.
those, yeah, the I have a very large collection of DVDs, Blu-rays, and 4Ks, and yeah, if I want to watch my copy of Train Spotting, I know where it's at. I don't get surprised if I take it out and open up the package and say, "Oh, you don't have the license for this anymore." No, I've got that physical media forever. Now, whether or
There
not,
you
yeah,
go.
and you got that with your VHS tapes, and
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah, there's a joy in being able to say, hey, I owned, like Chris said, he's got 2000 VHS. That's impressive. Everybody's like, oh wow, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sure.
yeah, and one of the guys I used to work with, I took pride in what he said. He said, "You've got the largest collection of movies that no one's ever heard of," and it's like, "Yeah,"
Mm-hmm.
because I like I
Yeah.
like the weird stuff that no one's
Oh yeah.
never ever heard of, and yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that was a point of pride for me. And yeah, there's something to be said for collecting and having your collection and enjoying your collection, and
Yeah.
yeah, and being able to say, hey, I want to. And that's a lot of the movies that I pick for the show is stuff I have on my
Mm-hmm.
shelf that I want to share with everybody and
Right.
share with Mike and with the majority of you, the crowd, the our audience that keeps growing.
Right.
And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
everybody keeps saying the doom of physical media. I think I gave Mike a couple articles about Disney's selling off their rights to physical media to Sony, and Disney's for a long time has been setting on 4K remasters of classic Fox movies like Fight Club.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite movies of all time. I wanted a 4K release of it. Looks like Sony will probably eventually put that out, but Disney was known for physical media. It was a big
Mm-hmm.
deal when Disney would pull out something from the vault, the Disney vault, and
Mm-hmm.
put it out on videotape in the giant clamshell that everybody kind of reminisces about, and wouldn't fit into your. You'd have your collection of VHSs. It was so big that it wouldn't fit comfortably with all your other VHSs.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, it was a big deal when Disney would do that, and for Disney to kind of shy away from that now. The one of the articles I put was from digital bits, and they were talking about how it's become such a mess for Disney. Say they want to put out a 4K of something. Well,
Mm-hmm.
they have to go to the guys that do the releases. They have to go to their boss to get the okay, and then that boss has to go to the bigger boss to get okay, and then
Right.
once they get up to the top, now if that doesn't, if they get the okay to release that and it doesn't do well, since there's such a big pressure on them to do well, that person might get fired. So so everybody's scared, so they don't release
Mm-hmm.
anything, and
Oh yeah.
and to the point where they're selling off their physical media branch to Sony,
Mm-hmm.
and so they're probably going to get fired anyway. But there you go.
That's it.
And with that, I was never a part of the Disney Movie Club, but evidently that was a physical media branch that would you would subscribe to it, and you'd get really classic Disney movies that were kind of on the fringe. They were kind of the underground movies that some people,
Mm-hmm.
the lesser known Disney properties. I don't know if Sony's going to pick that part of it back
Mm-hmm.
up, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think with physical media, it's going to be less and less. And we had signs of it because Disney, before they did this, said that they were going to stop selling physical media in Australia. And actually, we talked about that on this channel as well. And I think that was the first step of them selling this off to Sony on hindsight. But I think a lot of the bigger companies are going to stop doing it and will start doing selling those licenses to do physical media with kind of boutique companies like Arrow Films. In fact, I
Mm-hmm.
have one of Arrow Films collections. It's Coffin Joe. Inside the Mind. It's a Brazilian filmmaker who did a lot of obscure movies. He was like a mortician, creepy guy. Coffin Joe, and so they'll probably and they also do some. I think they did a special edition of 16 Candles. So a lot of classic movies, they're getting the rights to release a very nice edition, which the bigger companies would never think to do that. But they release them in smaller numbers, obviously, and they do quite well with that. They know how to manage. The big companies know how to throw out a big bulk copies of everything and hope it sells. But smaller companies like Aerofilm, Umbrella from Australia, those companies know how to figure out the market and know how many they'll be able to sell and make a decent sized profit off of these smaller movies. And I think that's probably going to be where things go. It's much like I don't know if any of us collect vinyl, but that's probably where
I got a lot of that too.
That's going to go.
And we're coming up here in 45 minutes or so, and I just wanted to kind of take a little bit of time to kind of maybe just do a quick ad hoc kind of fast round or so. Like, so if we name out a genre, you tell me like what movie you're going up to your media library, your man cave, and picking out as we kind of go through. If everybody's on board with maybe doing that, maybe just talking about our favorites like we did at the top of the show with the Purple Rain and the other one. Is that okay, Tom? Is that
yeah. So if you're in the 80s mood and you wanted to grab like a horror movie from the 80s, what do you grab, Chris?
Okay, I'm gonna go with the original Friday the 13th, 1980. A lot of people don't know Kevin Bacon from Footloose was in that movie.
No, he wasn't. Really?
Yes, he was.
No,
He was the guy on the bed laying down and grabbed him by the mouth and came up with the spear or whatever that was. That was Kevin Bacon. Yes,
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Another piece of trivia Jason isn't the killer in that one.
Interesting.
No.
Yep. a little bit of a spoiler there, but well, what do you pull down, Mike? I know you're just starting in on the horror movie.
Oh God, I would probably go for. I would have to roll the answer back before I was exposed to all the liking the horror genre. That's another thing that Tom got me into was horror. I just thought it was just slash or whatever, but I've told that a million times. But I'm probably going to be picking Aliens, just off the top of my head, probably Aliens, and please, dear God, tell me that was in the 80s.
yeah, it definitely was.
It was it was Alien that was in 79, wasn't it?
Yep,
that's right.
Yep.
Aliens is what I'm grabbing that one. I'd be hard pressed to think of another one, but that one is one that I have fond memories of. What, just like you were saying, it takes you back to that time that you watched that movie, or I know exactly what you're talking about. I remember not every movie, but a special movie, and maybe it's special to me, maybe it's not critically acclaimed or whatever, but you do kind of walk back through in your mind's eye, and you kind of go, I knew what I was doing, I know who I had a crush on, I knew what grade I was in, I knew what we had for dinner, kind of all these things that go back from there. But my dad was a gateway to introducing me to very cool classic movies that are more obscure, I guess. But I got a slice of life from my dad for that. But how about you, Thomas? Let's turn it back to you.
Yeah. So this is towards the end of the 80s, but the one that really, when I first really started getting to horror, I went all in, and I'll throw out there Hellraiser. I think it was 88. But it was one of those that kind of blew my mind. It went way into gore, but it had an interesting story, and you were kind of riveted in your seat watching that movie.
Oh, yeah.
And it's definitely classic. Clive Barker, always there for a good scare. Okay, so let's switch over to sci-fi. What sci-fi movie do you immediately think, Chris?
Okay, I'm gonna go with what's that movie that Harrison Ford did it in the 80s?
Blade Runner.
Blade Runner.
Yep, that's
a classic.
That is a good one.
Yep.
All right. That's awesome.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yep.
And
that's the one.
Yep,
Uh,
yeah, it launched a whole different, it's its own kind
Oh my
of
God, that thing was
subgenre in and of itself. Cyberpunk sort of kind of sprung from that.
Mhm. I was gonna say it kind of gave you a gateway to what it is, sort of what it is now.
yeah,
And that was back in what
it,
82 when it
yeah,
came
it
out,
was
something like
so
that.
far ahead of its time. It opened up new doors to like what science fiction could be.
Hmm.
Or and not just the dystopian kind of. Some of these are like they blend in and they blend and flex on certain genres, where they're
Hmm.
interwoven for that.
Yeah.
Uh, Tom, I'm gonna have to cheat a little bit on that answer.
Okay.
Because we're talking about VHS tapes, and this certainly kind of when I heard that we were going to be interviewing Chris, it got me thinking about my experiences with VHS tapes and whatnot. And my uncle,
Mhm.
who's about 10 years older than me, had
Okay.
like the entire. He did the this is back in the day, like when you could do the Paramount movie.
Hmm.
I'm making it up. I don't know, but they had
Mhm.
some kind of like a movie club or something where you could subscribe to it and then you get the entire library of a show or
Oh
whatever.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Mhm.
one of
I
those
know those
was
clubs.
Star Trek: The Next Generation. My uncle had, I
Hmm.
think he didn't have all the seasons, but he had like season 1 through 4 or 5, something like that. But they were all
Wow.
on VHS tapes. And I remember he had moved away from his house, from his mom, my grandma. And so like when he was gone, and I would go spend the summer, a couple weeks here or there with my grandma and my cousins and all that. I remember very fondly finding his collection, and he was okay with it. To
Yeah.
like just it was like heaven. I could just
Mhm.
rewatch all these episodes in
That's right.
excruciatingly uh, detail that I found fascinating. So, sci-fi. If it was a movie, God, I don't know. I'd have to think about it. But I'll just stick with Star Trek: The Next Generation on the VHS tape that
Excellent.
my uncle had gotten, and I guess he just didn't have the. I guess he just didn't come back and pick it up because he was in his early 20s by that point, and
Mhm.
he's going into the world and all that. But
Yeah.
that's what I have
Yeah.
very fond memories of, just rewatching a million of those, and
Hmm.
having that experience of it. That was like pre Netflix, obviously, like where you could just binge
Yeah.
watch whatever.
Hmm.
But that just comes to mind that we're on the topic. How about you, Tom? What are you saying?
Yeah, this is just immediately on the spot what I immediately think of, and I probably could think of hundreds, thousands of other sci-fi movies, but the one that comes directly to my mind is Escape from New York, a
Ah, yeah.
classic John Carpenter movie. Shot supposed to be New York, but shot in St. Louis.
Hmm.
Kind of epic movie. I don't know.
Excellent.
I saw it on late night on TV one
Mhm.
night, and it blew my
Mhm.
mind. I was like, "Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, this is the movie I want to watch,"
Yeah.
indefinitely. And but
Wow.
yeah, it gave me something new, something to think about. It had an ending that wasn't like the good ending that all movies have. This kind of ended
Mhm.
with a what exactly happened? Didn't happen. It's not like a super happy ending. It made you think,
Mhm.
and I like that. I like the kind of
Yeah.
puzzling over something like that. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
we love John Carpenter on our channel, and we'll probably do that movie in the future.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
kind of keep a lookout for that.
Absolutely.
But
Oh yeah.
let's keep it rolling. Chris, your favorite fantasy movie
Whoa. Favorite fantasy movie.
in the '80s?
Okay, I'm going to go with one that a lot of people are not going to think about. The Never Ending Story. How about that one?
Yeah.
I've not heard that one for a
That's
very
my
long
favorite one.
time.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yes, sir.
Oh man,
Yep, I
God,
love it, man.
fan
That's one of my favorites.
that's a good one. Dang, oh man,
That's a really good
I'm trying to.
one. I mean, it's so many.
Hmm.
I could name Labyrinth with David Bowie. I could
Hmm.
name something like that.
Yep.
So it's
Yep.
so many of
Yeah,
those
and
out there.
we
Yeah.
just covered on an episode a couple of episodes back, Dragon Slayer. We did
Yeah,
the
we
Dragon
did.
yep.
Slayer.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh
Yeah.
man,
Yes.
I would have. I'm gonna have to think about that one for a minute. I don't have one off the top of my head. I am, and I know we've. I don't. What I don't want to say is like one we've already covered that I never saw when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But I'll have to think about it. But Tom, while I think about it, And I beg off to not answer the question. Just kidding. I'll let you fill us in on yours. What's yours?
Okay. The one I always think about is Dark Crystal. Yeah, I know Chris said Labyrinth, but Dark Crystal, Jim Henson's puppets. That kind of exposed you to a whole new world. It was like, oh my gosh, it's all puppets. You kind of had to start relating to a puppet. It was the first time where an inanimate object like a puppet or CGI or something like that, where you were emotionally involved, and by the end of the movie, they were no longer puppets. You weren't, at the start of the movie, you're kind of like amazed at what they could do with everything, and you were kind of just enraptured by the spectacle of it all. But by the end of the movie, you were invested in these characters, and they were no longer puppets; they were characters that you were completely invested in, and were right there with their struggles. And it was great that they had that revival on Netflix and had that season of that kind of continued the story. I know they kind of canceled after the first season, but it was great to have some more of that story. And that season of it, they gave the tender loving care to it, and really kind of invested in those puppets, and made kind of broadened out that world. And I would really love, I don't think there's a physical media of it, but I would love like a nice Blu-ray set of that season of it.
Yeah. And I unfortunately don't have an answer, but I was going to say, let's switch gears. And I will get back to you guys on that one, because that's a good question. I just got to look at a couple more lists and remember, but on the spot. But with that being said, let's switch it up and say, are there any movies, wink to Tom, I think he knows where I'm going with this, that you're looking forward to, Chris, this year, that are coming out this year, that you and what is your attitude or thoughts on what is the threshold which triggers you to go to the theater nowadays, because it is so much different in everything else, as it goes forward. Like, it's very expensive. It's almost like I don't want to say it's quite as bad, but it probably is if you have a sports stadium near you, go see a ball game or something. Like, it is not cheap to just go see, even if you do go there for the cheap seats or get a deal, they're still going to get you coming or going for whatever you get there, because who doesn't get hungry or thirsty? But anyway, what are any titles that you're looking forward to seeing this year? Or I guess, what's your kind of thought process? Like, what is your trigger to go see a movie, if there is something that you do want to see aside from?
I know we keep going back to the 80s, but it would have to give me that feel.
Okay, right on.
Because back then they made movies for less money, and the movies made a ton of money. Like Star Wars, they didn't make that for that much money.
And they had a second chance too when they released it to home theater too for VHS or DVD. You're absolutely right about that.
Exactly. So it would have to really catch my interest, man. I'd have to have that feel for me to actually go to the theaters to see it, because like you said, Mike, man, you're gonna spend over $100 going out.
If you got kids or you're taking somebody with you, or nieces, nephews, whatever it is, like you are spending money. And that is not something that is easily accessible as it once was back. It's like kind of like a planning. You got, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just like inflation and everything else. Like, nothing is getting cheaper as we get. Maybe TVs, maybe big screen TVs are getting cheaper, but big screen TVs aren't going to feed your dreams or your desires or your needs, for that matter. But
hey guys, hold on a second. Let me get my plug to plug into my laptop.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, please go ahead. And absolutely. Right, and while he comes back, Tom, what? Well, I think you know where I'm going with this, but and it's coming up very shortly. But obviously, Dune Part 2. I know you. Yeah, we all kind of like shared our own kind of like bought tickets, going to see it.
Got it. Yeah. Dune 2, definitely Part 2. That'll be my first return to the theater since since before COVID. So yeah, it's been a minute since I've been, and yeah, the
That is
when
substantial.
yeah, since you know, Warner Brothers started releasing all their that year where they just started releasing their premiere movies on. They did it in theaters and on streaming. That's where I first saw Dune Part One. I became enamored with it, fell in love with it. The whole Dune universe. I ended up reading all the books. And Mike reached out to me on Facebook and said, "Hey, do you want to start a YouTube channel?"
Yep.
And the first movie we talked about was Dune Part One. So it's sort of like
yeah.
bringing everything back around and putting a bow on it. Hopefully, it'll continue the series as far as movies as our channel will. Chris, we were talking about Dune Part Two. I think that's our biggest movie that me and Mike are looking
Yeah.
forward to.
Yeah, and I did want to ask him real quick. Were you aware that Beetlejuice 2 is coming out this year, or is rumored to be on the docket? Would you, and if so, if you haven't, would you go see it? Depending upon like just out of sheer curiosity, I'm always interested in hearing others' opinions on like a random title we'll throw out.
I probably would go see that on, just like you said, just pure curiosity,
Sure.
just to see if they do justice to the original.
Right.
But man, if they mess that thing up, I'll be so disappointed.
Yeah, hurts.
That's like I don't know if you guys have heard of this movie called The Warriors.
Oh yeah,
1970.
absolutely,
Yep. Very familiar.
If they did a remake of that movie, man, it's like, don't touch, leave it alone, don't touch it. If you're not going to do it justice, don't touch it.
They did.
You have to stay true to it. So
that back in the early 2000s, Rockstar came out with a video game of it, though, which was kind of fun to play.
And that video game's hard to find too.
Yep.
It's hard to find, so that's probably worth some money.
Yeah. Yep. Talking about physical media. Oh, and we can't leave the 80s without doing our pick of our favorite 80s action movie.
Oh God, I was waiting for you to get into that.
That's like a whole nother hour.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Chris, I know I'm putting you in the spot here, but you're if you feel that you can only watch one action movie from the 80s and you're going to your videotape shelf, what do you pull down?
All right, this is it. The Terminator.
Oh man,
that's quintessential 80s. That's the action movie.
That's funny.
I know. I got a feeling of what you guys might say, what you might say, Mike and Mac. What you're gonna choose, but I'm telling you, the Terminator is the action movie. That's my pick. Terminator.
I'll let you go ahead, Tom.
All right. Well, to go on the flip side of things, I'm going pure action. This movie I saw in the theater. Maybe I was a little bit too young for it, but it blew my mind. And when I think of action, I think of this movie, First Blood. Sylvester Stallone. First Blood.
Yes, sir.
Classic movie.
I am probably gonna say a classic action movie where me and my cousin we were totally into American Ninja, American Eagle. I'm trying to think. I'm gonna say it'd probably be a Van Damme flick. And I hope to God this is
maybe.
Lionheart. Lionheart was what I was thinking. Although that probably was in the 90s. Now I think about it, but you get the gist. Pick any late 80s Van Damme movie, and I watch it. And you know what? While we do that, I might as well bring it up. But I'll let you talk about something.
Yeah, Van Damme movie. I would think Hard Target would be for me, but
Hard Target.
But that probably is 90s as well. I guess we'll skip over romantic comedies or romance movies because we're not into those. But
I'm surprised nobody said Die Hard.
Oh God! Well, see, this is the thing. There's so many good ones in Arnold too. Like you were just saying, Terminator, Predator. There's all kinds. That from the Total Recall was one that I remember sneak watching. Gremlins. I'm surprised. You know what? I'm surprised I didn't say that for horror. That was actually probably the first horror movie that I got to see as a kid. Well, I wasn't supposed to see it, but I got to see, I saw it and it scared the crap out of me.
Yeah.
Not to like to the point where I couldn't watch it, but I definitely like
Mhm.
I snuck watching it, and then I had to fortunately I don't think my mom knew that I snuck out and watched it, but like it definitely
Yeah.
kept me up for another couple hours.
Mhm.
All
Absolutely.
right.
Yes, sir.
So we'll skip over romance. We gotta go. Our final category,
Mhm.
win the whole category is comedy. Chris.
Whoa, comedy. So many great ones, man. Oh man. Uh I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Beverly Hills Cop, Eddie Murphy.
Oh man.
Mhm.
Yep.
There you
Beverly
go.
Hills Cop.
Yep.
That's probably his best movie, I'm gonna say. That's him at his height.
Mhm.
He was the comedian in the 80s. So at his height, Beverly Hills Cop. That's my favorite.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a
All
good
right.
choice.
Yeah.
I'll probably go ahead of your time, and I'll probably say
Mhm.
Lethal Weapon.
Okay.
Lethal Weapon. Yeah.
Although
Lethal Weapon.
I probably saw the first time I probably saw it was like made for TV, kind of
Mhm.
edited whatever, and then
Yeah.
it was all I definitely remember seeing that one. How about you, Tom?
Uh,
That's a good one.
Let me think. There's let's see. I'm gonna cheat and pull up a list of comedies of the '80s.
Go ahead.
You know, okay. Yep. I just wanted to make sure it was in the '80s. We talked about it on the show. I love it. Raising Arizona.
Okay.
Classic.
Nicolas Cage.
Yep.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I was going to say Ghostbusters, but that's another
You know,
classic.
Another one.
that's funny
Is
because
that comedy or is it a little
yeah,
sci-fi?
well,
Yeah.
A little bit of both, right?
Hmm.
yeah, that's true. That also reminds me of Bill Murray, of Stripes,
Hmm.
Right.
and
Right.
that one.
That's the
Moneyball.
fact, Jack.
Yeah, love that one. I saw that many
Mhm.
times. It probably grew on me as I later went on and joined the military. But of course, you don't think about those things. But that was one.
Right.
Bill Murray was probably the quintessential another cornerstone star that you couldn't go 2 years in the '80s without seeing something about him, or
Oh
something
yeah.
just like
Mhm.
Eddie Murphy. Uh,
Eddie Murphy,
and
right.
I do remember. I wish I could have seen it when I was a kid. Probably would have been bad for me, but I do
Mhm.
remember watching his special when I could. I think on tape,
Oh
like years later in the
yeah.
'90s. I know
Mhm.
I snuck. I fell into like any good kid, young kid. You
Mhm.
discover this thing called comedians and how they
Oh yeah.
make albums, and Robin
Mhm.
Williams and all the
Yeah.
famous Louis C.K. or not, those are all modern people. Like I can't
Mhm.
exhaust Robin
Richard
Williams.
Pryor.
Yeah,
Richard Pryor was one
Richard
too.
Pryor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
you
those
kind
guys.
of found these bootleg ones that
Mhm.
you had a friend's dad or whatever had something you weren't supposed to see. That was through
Mhm.
your social network, real social network,
Right.
as it were back then in the '80s. But
Back then.
fond memories of sneaking and watching something maybe I shouldn't have
Mhm.
seen. It was
That's
never
right.
too bad. But
Hmm.
Mhm.
I'm enjoying these picks, so I'm gonna add another category.
shoot,
Okay.
This is okay. So you're staying up late at night trying to get that song off of MTV. You got your VHS ready. You're ready to hit record.
uh-oh.
Your fingers kind of itching, just waiting for it. What song or music video kind of represents the '80s that you would love to tape on there that would come on? What's that song or music video that you're waiting for to come up?
Oh,
Um,
let's see. Uh, I'm going to hit you with something. Now, I brought up Purple Rain, so it would
Mhm,
probably be a Prince song, but that's too easy. Okay, I'm going to hit you with
mhm,
something else.
mhm,
I'm going to hit you with there's this song by this group called The Waitresses. I
mhm.
know what boys like. You ever heard of
Oh
that?
yeah, yep.
That's that's quintessential 80s right there.
Hmm. Yep,
Yep.
yep.
I'm gonna choose that one.
Awesome. Oh man, for MTV '80s. Oh man, God, I'm trying to think. I don't. I'm gonna have to think about that one because, like, when I did see MTV, it primarily was in the '90s. Just being
90s, right?
honest.
Okay, you can pick one from
Yeah,
the
yeah,
90s. You can
sure.
do
Yeah,
that.
well, if we expand it out just
Yeah.
just a smidge,
Yeah,
Yeah.
just a little over. Yeah.
yeah, it would probably be oh god, it would have been Meatloaf. I would do anything for love. I remember, I think it was
That's a
in
good
the
one. Yeah. That's classic.
second or third grade or whatever, but that was early '90s too.
Yeah.
No, it would have been third or fourth grade, excuse me. But I remember that being a thing, and for some reason, it's just it's forever in the memory banks. There, I
Yeah.
probably could. I wish I could pick a cooler one, but oh well. I'll stick to my normie pick. How about you, Tom?
All right. Well, there's a lot of standout. I'll wait. I'll wait for my my big reveal at the end, which
Okay.
I don't know if you guys will know it, but yeah, I could have picked Duran Duran. They were iconic during the '80s.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Save a prayer. You know,
Hunger Like the Wolf.
Rio was a
Oh yeah,
classic
Rio.
video.
Mhm.
Almost every song off of the Streets of Fire movie made a big music video. There's just so many, but if I was going to pick one, it's going to be and this video kind of got me into a whole new genre of music. Really kind of lit my fire. Sisters of Mercy, This Corrosion. They're kind of bringing it to the goths out there, you know. Peace,
Okay.
you know, back in the '80s, there was a big goth scene, but yeah, This Corrosion. If you haven't heard it, you know, it's a banger. So
Okay.
you know, pull it up and take a look. And the video's pretty iconic '80s. He's out in the rain. You got your blue light going, and the rain's just going down, and the singer's got his cool shades on. And yeah, he's just giving it his all.
Oh,
Cool. I have to check that out.
awesome. Yeah,
Definitely gotta check that out.
yeah, we're at almost an hour and 15. We're about 4 minutes away from that point, but
Yeah.
I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to cover, or if we had hit all the high points, Tom, or if you had any other cards up your sleeve, or Chris, anything else you wanted to dive into, or ask. Oh, I actually one question. What are your thoughts on you know, some of the, like, I guess, oh, that's what I was gonna say, we kind of circled around it. We talked about tapes and physical media and streaming. What are your current streaming media or streaming platform picks that you like to keep around year round, that you like to, if at all, any really, would be curious to see, like, what are some staples for you versus like ones you might tune into here or there, or not at all.
I think like on Amazon Prime or something, like, or Netflix,
Right on.
I tend to watch the older TV shows from the 80s,
Sure.
like Family Matters or Growing Pains and Silver Spoons and all of that stuff. Those on down, speed dial.
Yeah,
okay.
that's a good. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say something that I probably would watch once in a while. Maybe Married with Children or something like that.
Classic.
Yeah, I mean that's an 80s TV show too, but I don't watch it as much as I would watch
Sure.
like Growing Pains or something like that.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. That actually goes into, like, what's your favorite family sitcom of the of
Oh
the
yeah,
80s?
that's classic.
Family, for me, it's Family Matters. A lot of people like the Cosby Show or Roseanne,
Sure.
but I'm going to go with Family Matters. I'm going to go with that
How about you, Tom?
because if you think about the title, Family Matters.
No,
Family really
I remember.
does matter.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. Tuning in for, I think it was Friday nights.
And plus, they had the geek of the 80s, Urkel.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what more can you ask for? So I'm gonna go with that one. Family Matters for me.
Absolutely.
What about you, Mike? What's your favorite TV show from
Mine?
the 80s or even the 90s?
Yeah. For the 80s, for me, near and dear to my heart, I was a huge Michael J. Fox fan growing up as a kid, mainly
so
because
Family-
his name was
Family Ties.
Michael.
Right.
And then, you know, he just had this kind I just thought he was cool. From Back to the Future to, like, whatever. There's also a very special one that we covered not a little bit ago, but I would say anyway, my throwing it out there longer than it needs to be, but Family Ties. That one, I will forever remember that, and I loved it. I identified with it because I was the big brother, oldest brother,
Mhm.
and he was I believe he was the oldest brother, or was it definitely had that role in the show, as
Oh,
memory
yeah.
serves me. But I remember that, and I just remember being like, man, this guy is so cool.
Alex P. Keaton.
Alex P. Keaton, that's right. Yep, all the way to the whole
Oh,
the
yeah.
whole
Yeah.
thing. How about you,
Yeah.
Tom?
That's right.
Well, I don't know if you'll let me have it, but it was right at the end, '89. It's more of a '90s show. Seinfeld, of course.
Very cool.
Seinfeld.
You're a good pick.
Now, if
Mhm.
you say that's a '90s show, then I'll go back and say for America, I would say Wonder Years. Wonder Years would have been
One of the years.
Oh
Wonder
my
Years
That's a
God,
good one.
would have been my pick.
Yeah.
a good one
But
too.
yeah, if I step across the pond and in Britain, my favorite British sitcom of the '80s would be The Young Ones. If you remember that one.
Hmm.
Interesting.
I don't remember.
I don't think I saw that
I don't
one.
remember too many shows from overseas.
Okay. Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. And
Mhm.
to be honest, I probably saw it during the '90s, so it would have been
Mhm.
my pick. But yeah, if I was in the '80s and the prime '80s, it would have been the Wonder Years.
Mhm.
Even
One
though,
of the
yeah,
years. Good one.
yeah.
That's a good pick.
That is a good pick. Yeah. No,
Mhm.
oh man, these are all taking me like this is making me want to load up, go find a show and watch it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about well, okay, this is kind of fun. Since we're talking about nostalgia and whatnot, did you have a favorite late night host or a person who did late night from the '80s to the '90s? Did you have a favorite one that you always gravitated toward when you were kiddo, kind of coming up
Mm.
like that was just funny to you?
Yeah.
I got a couple.
The '80s. I'm gonna say Johnny
Yeah.
Carson, and then more so towards the '90s. Um, Arsenio Hall.
Okay. Very cool. I remember Arsenio. Yeah, I remember watching
Mhm.
that.
I mean, I like Letterman too. Letterman. I mean, those are all obvious choices, but for me, Johnny Carson and Arsenio Hall.
Awesome. How about you, Tom?
I was always a Letterman guy, but yeah, I always got a chuckle out of the irreverent humor of Letterman. Yeah,
Mhm.
uh, maybe kind of lost it in his later years, but prime '80s Letterman, classic.
Mhm.
You can't beat when Chris Elliott would show up, or the classic monkey cam. He was always
Mhm.
doing something with a monkey. And I'm always
Yeah.
fascinated by monkeys because Planet of the Apes. Uh, but um,
Mhm.
but yeah, that's now if I was up late night and I wanted a good laugh, it
Mhm.
was during, I guess it was prime during the '70s, but it spills over into the '80s. It wouldn't be Saturday Night Live. I was never really big on Saturday Night Live, but
Mm.
SCTV. Um,
Oh yeah, I remember that.
SCTV.
TV.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I would be watching. You got Joe Flaherty, Eugene Levy,
Oh man.
John Candy, Martin Short.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
just keeps on going. The Strange Brew guys, the McKinsey brothers. A
Mhm.
Ozer. Yeah, I'm always down for some Canadian humor there.
That's
Yeah.
funny. Yeah, for me, I would, I do remember watching Johnny Carson. I even remember watching when he retired and Jay Leno came on, took over the reins of that. But Johnny
Mhm.
Carson, I definitely remember, and I didn't watch it a whole bunch, but I also do remember Letterman, and I do remember loving. I had more of a connection, like Tom was saying, with Letterman than I did with, like, say, Carson, going on,
Right.
but that did bloom into absolutely loving and adoring Conan O'Brien during the
Okay.
90s.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that one,
Mhm.
I good lord, if there ever was a thing of like buying like a whole couple seasons of that, which there isn't as far as I know, I would
Right.
absolutely. But
Okay.
until then, I have
Yeah.
to live vicariously through YouTube clips. And there's a really killer old classic interviews with either Letterman doing it, Conan, or Johnny Carson. Famous entertainers that probably passed while we were growing up,
Mhm.
coming up, but like some of them are. So it's kind of blows your mind of like they
Yeah.
said that back then. That joke really,
Mhm.
like, that was a network TV. Like, really, like
Yeah.
sometimes they really push, or the innuendo is so much more highbrow and more
Yeah.
thoughtful than what you would get nowadays. But
Absolutely.
yeah, no, that's just like a fun corner of nostalgia. Of course, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about, back in the day in the late 80s, early 90s, well, late 80s for me, early 90s, you would always be able to catch some kind of a show at 11 o'clock on Friday or
Mhm.
Saturday night. Those
Yeah.
kind of traded places over to like sometimes Star Trek, sometimes it was the original series,
Mhm.
sometimes it
Mhm.
was more like a more obscure one, like Silk Stockings. I remember that being on USA. Like some of the
Mhm.
more things, and I think we also
Oh yeah.
kind of touched base on this a little bit too, Tom. Not too long ago, Gilbert Godfrey and
Mm.
USA's Up All Night.
Up all
Um,
night. Yep.
Mm.
yeah, I also remember seeing that as a kid. Like again, this is
Mm.
kind of like
Mm-hmm. Up all
thinking that
night.
you were
Yeah.
getting away with something,
Right.
kind of
Yep.
like that was, a little bit more. You're probably my dad probably wouldn't have cared. My mom,
Mhm.
I don't think so.
Oh yeah, and Chris, did you have cable back then? Did you watch that on? I think it was Friday, Saturday nights. I loved watching Night Flights.
Night flights. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? When we mentioned MTV
Mm-hmm.
a while back, we didn't really have cable.
Uh-huh.
So I used to watch this video show called MV3. It had this
Okay.
guy named Richard Blade. He was the host of that show. So that was our video show
Mm-hmm.
that was on local TV.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And this is gonna freak you out, but we had these cable channels called On TV and Spectrum. Those are two of the cable channels we had
Mm-hmm.
here in Illinois. And we didn't necessarily have the channels, but what we used to do is we used to put a coat hanger in a TV antenna, and we used to bend it till it was round. That little squiggly line would be straight, and then we could get to
Yeah.
watch cable for free. So
Yep.
we
Yep.
used to do stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
Hmm.
can't talk about the 80s without mentioning the back in the day when you didn't pay for the channels.
Right.
Sometimes you would see them, it would be
Right.
squiggly lines.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Line would be.
Absolutely. Yep.
what young boy didn't stay up late at night trying to fine
Mhm.
tune that camera to see
Yeah.
a boob or two on
Okay.
those on those,
Hey
those
man, we're all guilty of it, bro. We're all guilty. If you're an '80s baby, you're guilty of it.
Yeah, we try to be a little bit of a family friendly show, but
Family friendly. Right.
the
Right. Right.
question is like, it reminds me of the joke, and I'll be a little bit more tongue in cheek adult here, but like, well, actually, I won't, but we'll keep it family friendly. We'll say that offline, but I'll say
There
that
you
joke
go.
offline. But yeah, that reminded me of seeing things that you weren't supposed to see, that sort of, not
Yeah.
necessarily that risque, but
Mhm.
sneaking in to watch something. Everybody had a friend. Oh, but also the antenna. We never had it, but I remember, I think a family member did. Whenever we go over there, I think my grandparents did at one point, and they lived out more rural area too. But
Mhm.
they had the antenna on the top of the house, and then you
Yeah.
could change the
The
direction,
direction of it.
yeah, of to be
Yeah.
north or south,
Mhm.
whatever it is. Like I remember that.
Mhm.
I
Oh
think
yeah.
we did live out in one house that we rented that was like that. But anyway, I do remember like, oh, hold on, or oh, the other thing too, I was going to say that all this kind of conversation reminded me of, like, I also remember being the remote control. Hey,
There you go.
could you get up and go
Right.
change the channel? Hey, son, or hey, could you go get up?
Mhm.
And then I remember, coming home from school or whatever, and be like asking one of my siblings to
Yeah.
go do that for me.
I
But
remember that.
anyway,
All
yeah,
right.
I
yeah,
think we're
yeah,
Yes.
I think we're coming up. We could probably go for another couple hours, but
yeah,
just
yeah, definitely,
but
yeah,
I'd
yeah.
love to have you back, Chris, if you're game, and then we can
Oh yeah, for sure.
maybe develop a theme around it, whether it's collecting or 80s or something like that. It would be fun to have your opinion.
Mhm.
Yep,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
definitely,
I'd love to come
definitely.
back. I would love to come back.
Awesome.
Had a great time.
Yep.
Thanks for having me.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
And before we go, though, like, did you have any other parting thoughts, Tom, or anything like that?
No, yeah, we really appreciate you coming, Chris. You really added to the channel. I think you
Absolutely.
fit
Thank
right
you.
in
Thank you.
with the collecting, and
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you accept the moniker of nerd, but we kind of embrace it here.
I'm the biggest nerd out there, bro. So
but,
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah.
but yeah, and the the whole '80s vibe is something we
mhm.
kind of go for here,
Yeah.
and anytime if you had a suggestion for a movie going forward.
Oh yeah,
We
absolutely.
like to do deep dives into different movies, and then if you the viewer just showed up and was wanting to check out the 80s with us, we've got a big back catalog of movies that we've gone over, a lot of them from the 80s. The ones that kind of stand out in my mind, we just recently did Dragon Slayer.
Mhm.
We've been kind of focusing on fantasy lately. We got Lady Hawk. We did the Back to the Future movies. Dipping into the 70s, we did Young Frankenstein, or Steen, as some people like to say. And but yeah, we've got several movies. We
They
did
Live. Yep.
They Live.
Oh, classic. They Live. Yes.
Yep. And dipping kind of into the obscure horror, we did Suspiria, and we did Possession. Possession
Love
was
that
on
one.
that top 100 that Rolling Stones put out.
Sam
But yeah,
Neill.
yep. But yeah, we got a tons of videos. I was thinking about it. We're approaching 200 videos. So
Really? Yeah, we are.
yeah, so,
Yeah,
That's good.
171. Yeah, we sit at 179. And I just wanted to kind of do a shout out to Tom. He's been helping us keep up with his trek through the Book of the Fallen. And I think he doesn't have that far to go before he wraps it up. But
yeah, I'm on book 9, and I just finished book 9 and did a video on my thoughts on it. And I'm currently reading book 10. They're a bit chunky. They're a doorstop book. It's about 1,200 pages, so it takes me a little while, about a month to read one of these books. So yeah, in a month, I look forward to my final wrap up of the series. I know Mike has been itching to get into it, and we may do a video on the first book once he finishes that.
I know, yeah, we got a full calendar coming up. Really, we really truly do, because we're about ready to get into the prime season for Dune Part 2. That's coming up. We're very, very, very much, not just me, but my kiddos are, to the tune. I will pull my kids out of school to go see that movie because that is practically a religious holiday around here, as it were. But that's like one of the very rare sci-fi movies that I got to see with my kiddos that it connected with them and me. I was hoping that maybe Star Trek, Star Wars would connect with them. It just didn't, but that's okay. You know, you have different tastes than what you have when you were younger, or what my dad might have been, or my son kind of makes fun of me because he's like, Dad, I don't get why you're so excited about space. Is like, it's just a bunch of nothing. Like, and I'm like, look, Junior, look.
Right. But we were all like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but like Tom, to bounce what Thomas was saying up a little bit higher. Yeah, we got a ever growing back catalog, and as we go through this, we have special guests. Chris, we'd love to have you back, like we were saying, and we absolutely will. But if you could please like, comment, subscribe what we're doing here, we'd love it if you could share it. Even better, cost you nothing. We just do this for the passion.
Yep.
Big sci-fi guy. Tom brings the horror, and whatever special guests that we can wrangle in here, we are all about. So with that said, I think we're kind of rolling up on the this train.
Yeah, I will mention I like I did up the thumbnail, and I've been enjoying the AI art that was completely generated. The whole thing's generated with AI art except the lettering. Very cool. It's like bringing the past into the future, into the digital age, and kind of embracing it. But yeah, it's a real fun, and we want to shout out to Chris's online store.
Let me bring that up here before we
look that again.
Like, let's give it a nice solid plug here.
Yeah, we made you warm, and we got you warm and fuzzy on the 80s. You're amped up on the 80s.
I'm all geeked up.
Yeah, you want to deck yourself out into some 80s gear. Here you go. We got your.
There you go.
And, Chris is wearing the shirt. I'm sure it's real comfortable, and it's got your classic.
Absolutely looks comfy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got your classic 80s colors.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, I like the hat. I don't know if I could pull it off, but
yeah,
I like the hat.
I always I like that too. That'd be it looks very. You know what? I'd still get it. I don't care.
Yeah.
These are very cool merch. So I would say that if you want to go check out some really cool gear, go
Yes,
look
sir.
up 80s-miles-clothing-gear.printify.me/product.
Yes, sir.
And that will be at the top most of our description should you want to roll through and grab a glass or a
Nice.
shirt or a pillow or something like that. Something to
Yes,
your head
sir.
upon when you're watching some classic 80s flick as
There you
or
go.
90s, really, doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, and I was thinking something we could bring Chris back on is the shows of today that are kind of nostalgia bait, like Stranger Things. We could talk about shows,
Stranger
oh
Things,
yeah,
yeah.
Ready Player One, that sort of
shows
thing.
and
Okay.
media that take its
Mhm.
inspiration or set in the '80s that are of today. That sounds
Okay.
like something we could maybe do
Absolutely.
in the
That's a good
future.
topic.
All right,
Yeah.
all
Well,
right.
again, Chris, I apologize for keeping you, but we just had so much fun. We're
Yep,
an hour
yep.
and a half, but thank you so much for coming on, and we really do appreciate it. Would be it
Mhm.
sounds like the next time we see a movie, we're gonna go to Chris's house because of the
Yeah,
theater.
yeah.
Let's go. Let's go.
Yep,
I got him.
Go, that's
yep,
right.
yep.
All right,
Thanks for having me. Thanks
thank
for
you
having me. I
guys.
appreciate it.
I've been Mike.
And I'm Tom. And
Man.
hope you enjoy our tour of the '80s. Where's the beef?
Where's the beef? I'll be back. Get out of here. We'll be back later, maybe.